There's something about a whisper. You can't whisper if the other person isn't close. You can't whisper if they're not listening. And you definitely can't whisper if there isn't trust. There's a photo of Caitlin and myself from a shoot that we did some time ago. And I'm leaning in and I'm whispering something into her ear. And what strikes me about that moment isn't what I was saying. It's that she was listening. Not reacting, not preparing a response, not defending, just listening. And that's actually where communication begins, not with talking, with listening. And that's exactly why we're ending this entire Relationship Alchemy series here. We started with vision, moved into needs, wants, and desires, then expectations, then boundaries, and today we land on the piece that makes all of it possible. Communication. Because vision without communication is fantasy. Needs without communication become resentment. Expectations without communication create confusion. Boundaries without communication are going to collapse. Communication is the vehicle through which all of this actually works. And when it breaks down, everything else follows. Let's start by understanding communication differently. Most people think communication is about talking, and it's not. If we underline it in one word, the main point of communication is simply understanding. Communication is a delivery system for understanding to occur. Understanding where somebody else actually is, helping somebody else understand where you actually are, so that connection can happen. And here's the part that surprises most people. Connection does not require agreement, but it does require understanding. Most communication exchanges aren't driven by a desire to understand. They're driven by a desire to be right, or to get someone else to see it our way, or to get them to do what we want. That's not communication for connection. That's communication for control. If we communicate well, connection deepens. If we communicate poorly, connection's going to break down. Now, before we even get into the framework for communication, there's something more foundational to clarify. Primary communication is always nonverbal. You can say the exact same sentence from a place of anger or from a place of compassion, and those same words will be received completely differently. Emotion is not good or bad, but it is influential. The energy that you bring into a space is part of the communication, which means the first step of communication isn't what you say, it's where am I right now? I've watched this play out countless times. A couple sits down to have a conversation and the words are measured. The sentences are clean, but underneath, one of them is carrying resentment. And even though they never raise their voice, the other person feels attacked. Not because of the words, because of the state. The nervous system always hears what the words are riding on. And the moment that your state shifts, when you feel shame, defensiveness, guilt, anger, your ability to listen also shifts. And when you stop listening, connection is gone. Which means this isn't just about intention, it's about competency. If communication is going to improve, it has to become a skill, and skills require structure. So let me give you the framework. There are 5 key steps to effective communication. They sound simple. They require practice. Step 1, be clear and package it for them. First, get clear with yourself. What are you actually trying to communicate? What do you want them to hear? And here's the most important part that people tend to miss. Communicating something in a way that makes sense to you is not important. What's important is delivering it in a way that the other person can receive it. That means considering their emotional lens, their belief structure, their values. If you don't package the communication in a way they can receive it, then no communication has actually happened. You've just talked at them. Step 2, you want to confirm that they understood. Even if you believe that you were crystal clear, don't assume understanding. Assuming someone understood because it made sense to you is a mistake. Ask directly, can you share with me what you understood? If they miss it, go back and redeliver. This isn't about winning. It's about accuracy. Step 3, you want to actively listen. This is where communication most often fails. Most people are not listening, they are waiting to talk. They're formulating a rebuttal while the other person is still speaking. They're assigning meaning based on how they feel. They're preparing to defend themselves. If you are thinking about your response before the other person finishes, you are not listening. If there is no pause after someone finishes speaking, they didn't consider what you said. They were preparing their reply the entire time. Active listening means that you are so present that if you were quizzed on what they just said word for word, then you could pass that test. It means that you are not creating meaning based on your internal reactions. And this is where state management matters again. Because the moment that you feel upset, ashamed, guilty, or defensive and don't manage it, then you start responding to your emotions instead of their words. And then you're no longer communicating with them. You're communicating with your own nervous system. Step 4, you want to confirm that you understood them. After listening, reflect back your understanding. Let me make sure I heard you correctly. This doesn't have to feel robotic, but it must be clear. And here's something important. If you repeat back exactly what someone said and they respond with, "That's not what I meant," it doesn't mean that they're crazy. It means that their delivery didn't match their intention, and now you get to redefine it together. That refinement is connection happening in real time. Step 5, repeat the process until there is closure. Communication is not one exchange, it's a loop. Delivery, confirm, listen, confirm, repeat, until there is a clear sense of where you are, where they are, and then what happens next. You may not agree, but you will understand each other's vantage point, and that's enough to maintain connection. Now, when I first meet a couple in distress, many of them say something interesting. They say, "Joey, we just need to talk more. We need more communication." Absolutely not. If you suck at communication, talking more is only going to make your relationship and matters worse. More words will not make up for lack of skill. If short conversations include passive-aggressive jabs, longer conversations will include more of those jabs. What people actually want isn't more talking. They want more understanding. They want more connection. And that requires communicating differently, not more frequently. And here's why. Because at any point in your communication, if your state shifts, if you get emotionally activated, you lose access to the other person. You start assigning meaning based on how you feel. You start reacting, you stop listening, and connection breaks. This is why so many conversations turn into roller coaster rides. It's not the words, it's unmanaged state, which is why communication is the final element in relationship alchemy. Because if you cannot manage your state, you cannot communicate effectively. And if you cannot communicate effectively, you cannot uphold vision, needs, expectations, or boundaries. So before we close this series out, I want to bring this back to you. Think about the last time someone that you cared about tried to explain how they were feeling. Did you actually slow down? Did you hear them? Or were you already preparing your response? Were you trying to understand their reality, or were you defending your own? Communication isn't about being impressive. It isn't about saying the perfect thing. It's about being available. Available enough to listen, available enough to pause, available enough to regulate yourself when your nervous system wants to react. You don't get to control every outcome in your relationships, but you do get to control how you show up and how you communicate, and that alone can make connection possible. Once you communicate from that place, once you gain the ability to manage your state, you set yourself up for your highest intelligence to come online. which is where we're going to go next. We're starting a series on intuition, what it actually is, how it functions as your inner GPS, and how to direct and leverage it instead of second guessing it. Most people treat intuition like a vague feeling, and it's not. It's a guidance system. And when you learn how to work with it, you move through life and relationships with a completely different level of clarity, and that's where we're going to go next. And if you prefer to read or listen instead of watch, you'll find links below to my blog and my podcast. Some people like to sit with it. Some like to take it on a walk. So however you train best, use that. But before we wrap, let me leave you with something to consider. In your last challenging conversation, were you trying to be right? Were you trying to understand? If you're willing, leave a comment and tell me about one moment this week where communication either deepened connection or quietly fractured it. What did you potentially notice about your state? What did you notice about your listening? I read all of your comments and they matter, so thank you for taking the time. Have a great rest of your day, and I look forward to connecting with you again next week.